Welcome to Extra Innings Softball Voices from the Field. I'm Jesse Warren here with
Katie Lively.
and we are thrilled to have you with us today as we dive into the world of softball like never before.
So grab your gloves, lace up your cleats, and settle in as we explore the voices from the field, where every inning counts and every player has a story.
Welcome back to Voices of the Field podcast. Today's episode, we are going to dive into the world of college athletics and the challenges that athletes face. Today, we're going to explore the intersection of college sports and social media, how it shapes those athletes' lives, their careers, and their mental health. So, whether you're an athlete, you're a coach, or you're just a fan, this episode's for you to share to the world. So, we're going to start, Katie and I, by just discussing the impact of social media on college athletes. Obviously, there's a lot of platforms out there. We have Instagram, Twitter, now X, TikTok, and athletes just have so much access to different audiences. So, Katie, what are your thoughts on, just how much access these athletes have to social media and what it can do for them, pros and cons wise?
Yeah, I think it's really cool that softball has been part of that conversation. I feel like for a long time it's been just, the pro football teams, the pro baseball teams. So it's really cool, to see that these athletes, these softball players are able to kind of get that attention and get the recognition and be seen as public figures more than they've ever been before. But I'd imagine it would cause a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, especially performance wise. I would think, and Jesse, you obviously probably get it a lot more than a lot of people being a professional athlete. But I think about in college, the stress that it could put on them when they don't perform great. If they are a public figure and people are starting to look at them and they have a lot of fans and a lot of followers, I think it could cause a lot of stress and anxiety. I think that you go out there and you're the star pitcher for Florida State and, you're in the national championship game, the World Series game, and you don't do well. And then you go look on Twitter. And not only do you not think you did well, but everybody that follows Florida State softball also doesn't think you do well. So, I mean, I think it's great. You have NLI now. You have a lot of, resources that you can use to make money and grow a following and, become more of that public figure like I said earlier. But I do think it kind of gives, it does have that double-edged sword like you mentioned. I think that I don't know. I think it's tough. It's good and bad, just like everything else. I don't know. I mean, I think about right now the World Series is going on for baseball, and I know I've seen a lot of stuff about like Aaron Judge, and I guess he's not doing super hot, and people are ripping him, and so I think it's the same way in college. So it's like big risk, big reward. I think that with that it comes some criticism. So I
Yeah.
think it can be kind of hard. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I'm sure you kind of have more of a experience with that than most people
Yeah,
do.
I think speaking on Aaron Judge, I literally he probably will never even see it, but I literally sent him a DM yesterday and I was like, I know he won't see it, but hey, I'm gonna say that he read it because he had a day yesterday. I
Heck,
said, little Aaron would be so proud of you. Have fun. I believe in you. Got this. Obviously, he didn't read it, but I think just sometimes it's like a good reminder. Like, even
yeah,
us as athletes, like, we need that. Like you said, social media, there's like, it's a platform for self-expression, but it also can create like pressure, like you said. And with that pressure, like, you see all these like people and you want to create this like perfect image of yourself and try to perfect who you are, and that's just not possible. Like, you're not going to be perfect, you're going to fail. And I think athletes are just like, we're seen not just as competitors, but like you said, as public figures. And so many people have opinions on how we play, what we do. And it's crazy because when I was watching the game last night, the Yankees versus the Dodgers, Volpe made a base running mistake. And I saw someone tweet and was like ripping him for making this mistake. But then he comes and hits the grand slam and they're like all praise for him. And
yep,
it's like, pick a side. Like, you're either not going to like me or you're going to like me, but you're not going to ride this bandwagon wave. And I
right.
think we as athletes deal with that so much. And sometimes it can lead to like anxiety. And for people who already deal with anxiety, it's a lot and it's so overwhelming and it's really hard to balance. And I don't know. I lived it. And I remember my senior year, we said no social media while we were in season. Like, we weren't getting on social media. We weren't going to look and see what people and fans are saying, because obviously there's going to be the positives, but there's also more negatives than there are positives if you're not performing at your best. So I think it's hard to balance, but I mean, there's good and bad to it. I think one of the goods is just like building your brand. I think that's
Yeah.
something we can like talk into, like start moving toward with our conversation, is like a lot of these athletes have social media, and it's like a really good tool for them to build their brand and have a strong online presence that can lead to like opportunities. And you speak about NILs and endorsements and partnerships, which again are increasingly important with the recent NIL change. We didn't get to experience that when we were in college. Maybe you did for 1 year. I'm not too
Yeah,
sure.
it was barely. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
like the first year.
So I didn't get to experience that at Everest. I think I think it's a like I said, it's a good and bad thing. And if you, I mean, if you have anything to speak on with it, like with building your brand, please share and your experience with the small amount of time that you had in college with NIL.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience, especially playing at Troy. It didn't have a ton of NIL money and resources like that. But I know my sister is in school now, and so she's kind of getting into that more. It's really cool. I think that the bigger schools are starting to have people that are literally there to get those kids sponsorships and to make sure compliance wise it's good. So I think the bigger schools are definitely moving towards that more, I would imagine, than the smaller ones, which makes sense. So I don't personally have experience with it, but I know that we are doing a commit crew for the class of 2026, and we are really hitting it hard with building our brand. And I say building our brand, them building their brands. And they are trying to get a lot of followers because I think in I'll have to look that up to make sure it's right, but I think it's like 10,000 followers as like a freshman at a power four school can get you like up to $5,000 or something like that. So there's a number that these girls can reach follower wise that can guarantee them sponsorship money. And so I think that's really cool. Again, I think it brings some more pressure to it. And I think people have to be very careful and walk a very straight line when it comes to their priorities and things like that. But I think it's super cool. I think it's a great way for, like you said, to have self-expression and building your brand on things that you believe in. I think immediately when I think of building your brand, I think Montana Fouts did a great job of that when she was in school. I think she has that Be the Blessing, her whole camp, her initiative. She did a great job building her brand. I think of her pretty quickly when I think of NIL and building that brand. So I think that it's a really cool opportunity. And regardless of what your major is, regardless of what you're interested in, I think every athlete can build their own personal brand, and it's allowed to change and grow. I think that's the thing too in college is I think about myself freshman year, and my brand my freshman year versus my brand my senior year would have been a lot different. So that's also, a pro and con. Like, how do you build your brand so early on when you don't really know like what it's going to evolve into? But I think it can be a great way for girls to really express who they are and learn who they are and grow. But yeah, it comes with a lot of pressure. I think about being a college athlete and how much time that already takes. So I'd imagine building your brand on top of that would be pretty difficult. But like I said, at those Power Four schools, which is still so weird saying Power Four, but Power Four schools, they have people that are now getting jobs that literally are there to help those girls and help those athletes. So I think resources are being created that can really gear towards building that brand, building those money, those scholarship sponsorship opportunities. And yeah, but like you said, I think it comes with a lot of pressure. And I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be really hard at first, but I think once you get a hang of it and once you start building and growing your following, I'm sure it's probably easier towards the end than it probably is in the beginning. But
Yeah,
finding time for all
100%.
that's got to be hard.
I think once you find a name for yourself too, it's like,
Right.
I mean, you look at, I'm just going to continue to use me as an example. Like my
Yeah.
freshman year is like, who are you? And then by your senior year, it's like, I'm known for this diving catch now. Like it's the
Yeah.
Jesse Warren catch. So it's like, and if it weren't for that play, like my brand is not what it is. And like
Yeah.
I'm not, and not saying a play makes me as an athlete, but that play doesn't happen. I don't have 30,000,
Right.
Instagram, and my platform's not growing the way it is. But I think athletes are doing such a great job just like putting themselves out there too when you speak about like the NIL. Like for instance, Najee Kennedy, like great
Yeah.
athlete, using her opportunities where she needs to use them. And like look at her now, like $1 million deal with
Crazy.
Patrick Mahomes company, Adidas, like so cool for our
Hmm.
sport and
So
for
good.
women, like knowing that they have these opportunities for the young ones in high school, like
Mhm.
knowing they have these opportunities as they get into the college level. So I think though with all of that, where do you think like NIL has created this space of pressure for these athletes like to perform in order to get these deals? Like do you think it's like good for them? Is it bad for them? Like where do you stand with that?
Yeah, it's hard because I don't know the ins and outs of the whole sponsorship NIL stuff because you see now and you hear rumors, you hear things. I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but you see these, at football it happens at this level, but I think it's starting to get into softball of, these schools are not only offering these kids scholarship, but they're offering them, hey, you'll have this much money in sponsorship deals or it's become a part of the recruiting process from what I understand. I don't know how much it's in there, but I know that it's there. And a lot of these schools are offering, the kids scholarship and then they're guaranteeing sponsorship money as well. Now, and anyone listening, I'd love if you guys have the answer for me, please send it to us. I don't know if all those sponsorships are dependent on performance. I don't know. I don't know if it's like, hey, Jesse, I'll give you this much money in scholarship, but then also, we'll guarantee you 100K in sponsorship deals if you start your freshman year or if you hit over 350 your freshman year. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you do either. Like, if you
I
come in your
don't.
freshman year and make 100K, but then you just don't do well and you don't play your freshman year and you aren't a key player in the game, like, does that get taken away?
But
I don't know.
it's really hard though to think about like are these deals being made before college? Because
Right.
even the kids don't know. Like the kids don't know if they're gonna start. The kids don't know if
Right.
they're gonna play. Like I don't know. It's like you work hard, you might play, you might not. Like it just
Right.
depends on who's in front of you. So I don't know. I just feel like too it can cause a lot of pressure and that leads to anxiety. And then
Absolutely.
like switching over, then now we talk about mental health.
Yeah.
Is this a rise in mental health issues with athletes? Like, is this what's causing some of these athletes to have this immense amount of pressure and not be able to perform because they have performance anxiety? Like,
Yeah.
because they're not doing well, because they're afraid to lose this deal and like so forth. So it's just like a lot to think about. And I just feel like with that, and we're like on the social media topic, I think with all of that pressure, like, my question to myself really is like, is social media good for athletes during season or during their like careers? Like,
Yeah.
granted, I like, yes, but at the same time, like, I just feel like it's such, I don't know, it's like so, I don't know. I'm like speechless. Like, I can't even put it into words, like what I'm thinking right now, because I'm so torn between wanting social media for these athletes, for myself as an athlete to get these NIL deals, brand deals, opportunities, but also such like it hinders your ability sometimes to play depending on who you are and how you look at certain things on social media. Especially me, like I have anxiety, like I deal with anxiety outside of softball. Softball is the only time I don't have anxiety, which is crazy,
Yeah.
but it's like looking back, did some of these comments I see on Twitter or on Instagram like make my next game not good because of the fact that people are like bashing me for having a bad game? I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just like we deal with so much cyberbullying and all of that on social media. It's just crucial, I think, for athletes too to have like strategies
Yes.
in order to cope with all of this. And it's not talked about enough. So, with that being said, kids, if you're dealing with this, like parents, if your child is dealing with this, I think it's like super crucial and important for them to take breaks from social media. Go on a hiatus, don't get on social media, take a break from it, log out, delete the apps, like whatever that looks like.
When you ask the question, like, is social media good? I think with boundaries and with help, it can be really good, but I think you have to have a lot of things in place for it not to affect you as deeply as it could. Cause I think about myself and my personality, like I was hard on myself to an extreme level to where like the things I'd tell myself would, I mean, I would kill somebody if they told me the things that I told myself, right? Like, and I know all these athletes, everybody is so hard on themselves. That's why we're great at the end of the day. Like you're hard on yourself in a good way, but there's also an unhealthy way to go about it. And I think if you're teetering with that unhealthy self-talk and that negative self-talk and being really hard on yourself, I'm thinking about myself as an athlete. If I have a bad game, the things I'm telling myself, which I probably should have, like you said, Jesse, I should have gone and talked to somebody and I didn't. And I can only imagine the things I'm telling myself and then going on Twitter and then seeing the things other people are saying about me. Like I just like I don't know if I could have handled it. I know I couldn't have. I would have had to have help and resources because if you're already telling yourself these things and then you go on social media and they almost validate what you're telling yourself through, like, these people are saying this Katie sucks, she's horrible, she shouldn't be on the team, she shouldn't be playing. Like you're already probably telling yourself that after going 0 for 4, in an unhealthy way, and you shouldn't be, but I know a lot of girls struggle with that as well. Like you don't need to see that on social media. So I think that with the right help and resources and coaching through that, whether it's a mental health coach, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your parents that are really involved in how you talk to yourself and how you play the game, and coaches to help you, I think it can be really tough. So I think you have to have resources and you have to know yourself and know when it's time to take a break and not look at social media. So I think it's such a hard balance. And I don't know. I don't know if anyone's like figured it out yet. Cause I mean, social media is still really relatively new. What in the past, when did Instagram and all that start? 2000, early 2000s, 2010?
Yeah. I remember I got it when I was in high school, so like 2014, or
Yeah.
sorry, 2012,
I
2010.
mean, that's only what, 12 years?
Yeah.
So I think people are still trying to figure it out. But yeah, I couldn't imagine the mental side of it.
Well, with that, Katie and I are going to take a break and we will be right back.
Okay, everyone, now is the time to nominate your 10U and 12U players for our Rising Stars watch list. So if you're a parent of a player that is 10 or 12U, a coach that coaches a team around that age, or if you just know somebody that is that age and you feel like they deserve some recognition, go to our website now and nominate them for our Rising Stars watch list. Nominations close on November 9th. So that'll be tomorrow. So make sure you get your nominations in, and we cannot wait to recognize your girls. PSA for all players who want to be recognized, we have so many media forms for you. So we have a player of the week form, a player profile form, an I committed form, an injury and illness form, and also a team spotlight form. So if you want to get recognized, if you want a teammate to be recognized or your team as a whole, go to our website and go to the drop down menu, and it is on media forms. And we have all these forms for you guys to be able to submit and be highlighted. We also just have a blank form for a story idea. So anything fun, anything cool that you feel like should be on our website, just give us a visit on our website and go to media forms on our drop down menu.
We are back and we are going to transition to a little bit more of the pros of social media and how athletes can utilize social media for their exposure and recruitment. So, obviously, we talk about social media pros and cons. I think one of the best things about social media is that many coaches and recruiters, I say recruiters, but really the coaches, because they are the recruiters, they check social media profiles and they utilize social media to see how athletes and players are competing. So I think it's super important that these athletes that have social medias make sure they're active and they're posting and they are, putting videos out there, tweeting their schedules to these coaches, because I know so many coaches that utilize X or Twitter. For those that don't know that it's called X, but utilize it to see kind of where players are playing, look at their schedules, look at videos. Like, what are your thoughts on it? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's great, but yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is great. I know that when we were doing recruiting and all that, we had to email coaches, which email is still great, but I think social media is such a great way to be seen by so many coaches. Share your highlights, tag your teammates, tag your coaches, tag prospective college coaches, all these different things. I think it's just such a great way to network. And I think it's great. I think it could be, you have the cons as well, but I actually did some research on this, and it's research shows that about 85% of college coaches now use social media to track athletes, to scout them, to recruit them. And they also look at them for their personality and their sportsmanship, their signs of commitment. About 55% of coaches report that a player's personal content can influence recruiting decisions. So I think it's definitely used by college coaches. I know me and you both know college coaches, we're friends of college coaches, and I know that's all they really use now. I mean, they do their emails and stuff like that, but a lot of times it's just scrolling through Twitter and just seeing all these highlight videos and like I just said, and your personality. I think that a lot of girls don't realize that what you like and what you comment and your language and all that stuff matters. So I think it's great. I think you got to be careful with it. You got to be strategic about it, but I think it's such a great way to show your personality and show your skill to so many college coaches that maybe you're not specifically targeting, but you never know what feed you'll pop up on, you know?
Yeah, you talk a little bit about the like what you post. I think social media can be a great first impression for
Yeah.
coaches, but it can also be your worst nightmare,
Mhm.
depending on like what you're posting, what you're liking. Because the way social media works is your feed is based on what you like and repost, and what you like pops up on other people's feed as well. So I can see that Katie liked something. And if you're not liking things that are, up to those coaches' pars, then obviously that's a conversation that needs to be had amongst you and the coach. But at the same time, it's important that you're posting positive, encouraging things. Like you don't want your Twitter to be all negative because coaches aren't going to want a negative person or negative athlete around the program. Like you
Right.
want to go into that program as a positive athlete, doing the best that you can. And I think that's just like the biggest thing is positive content. So whether that be your training sessions, positive interactions with your friends or coaches, showing that you're involved in the community, like
Yeah.
just showcasing your character and who you are. And I have a story. I remember there was a time when I was in high school and I remember tweeting something out. I can't exactly remember what it was about, but I just recently looked at my emails and coach had sent me an email and she wanted to talk to me about what I had posted, and apparently it wasn't a part of the FSU culture and what they believed in and what they liked. And not saying like it was anything like political or any of that. It was just like I posted something about, I can't even remember, but it was not a positive post. It was more on the negative side. And I just remember that being such a turning point for me with social media and being careful with what I posted. And we had this meeting in my freshman year of college amongst all the athletes at Florida State. We would all go into the auditorium and they would post on the big screen just like all of the bad stuff that these
Oh
freshmen
my
coming in would
goodness.
post on their social media. And seeing some of these things, I was like, okay, mine wasn't that bad. Mine was bad, but it wasn't that bad. Like, I'm glad I
Right.
did not do some of this stuff. But yeah, so I think it's just super important that you just make sure you're not using your social media as a negative influence toward others. Another thing too is your privacy settings,
Ooh.
man, safety. I think having your Instagram and Twitter private is not the best when it comes to getting recruited, but at the same time, like you want to make sure that your safety is put at first. So I
Right.
think it's super important that they're educated on, managing their privacy settings and recognizing people who follow them and bots and, people who shouldn't be following them. And then as well as protecting their own personal information, making sure that your personal information isn't showcased like on your actual profile for weirdos to get. Like you don't want weirdos getting your stuff. So if a coach asks for it, I mean, your email's fine. I think that's easily manageable, but definitely not your phone number, not your address. Making sure you're protecting your privacy and your family's privacy, because when you get to college and you're that athlete, there are weirdos. Like there are
Weirdos.
really weird weirdos that will be weird. So
Yeah.
privacy is important. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with
Yeah.
social media and all of that.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting too because you need to look at the culture of the coaches that you're looking at too. I think that that's why I like the social media and recruiting a lot because you don't you can also look at the coaches that you're looking at and see what they're posting, right? Like if you're looking for a particular kind of culture, you can kind of see that on social media. I'm not saying all coaches are like super active on social media, and I'm not saying that if they don't have a good culture. Obviously, there's some that just do and some that don't, but I think you can get a good gauge on the coach as well, which is really cool. Or even just like the team social media. Like every college team for the most part has their own Twitter page, and you can kind of see what they're doing, right? You can keep up with what the team does in the fall season. Do they do a bunch of competitions? They do a fun little Halloween, dress up game, like some of the different things that those teams do that are special to that program. Like that's things that you can look at too. So I think it's a good way for athletes to get to know a culture of a team. Like I think I saw FSU a few weeks ago, they did like a parents weekend and all the parents came. So like that's just a cool gauge of like, oh, that's really cool FSU does that. Like, or maybe you don't want that. I don't know. But like you're able to see what different teams do, what they're kind of up to, especially in the fall season, which is cool to see when they're not playing all the time, what they do culture wise and stuff like that. So I think it's a really cool way of seeing the culture of the program and the coach as well. So I think players can utilize it to the best of their ability, not only by showcasing their skills, but also kind of looking at coaches, looking at teams and see what they're doing. It's pro and con for sure. I think with recruiting, I think it comes with more pro than it does con. But I know a big con is comparison. That's what I hear a lot when we do our interviews with a bunch of the players, the 2025s and 2026s. I know a lot of them say they really struggle with comparison and seeing, different players committing to different schools and getting different offers and going on different visits. So I think it can be tough. I think kind of what we said earlier, like you just need to make sure you have the right resources and you have the right support system and know when to take a break. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool. I know that one of the girls, I can't remember if you were on this call, Jesse, it may have been when you were playing at AU, so you may not have been on this one, but one of the girls said that she tagged all the coaches throughout her recruiting process, but when September 1 hit of her junior year, she stopped tagging coaches and she tracked what coaches liked her stuff without being tagged. And so she was like, I was able to get a good gauge there because if I can see that these 10 coaches are liking my stuff without me even tagging them, then they're pretty interested and I kind of know where to go from there. So like just different tactics that you can really use to your benefit to see, what programs you want to consider and what programs you want to look into. So I think it's definitely a mix of pros and cons.
I think too, for parents and for athletes, I think just some tips from myself. Encourage a healthy balance, like with your athlete, with your child, between like real life and social media. Katie talked about comparison part. And like if we want to be real with ourselves and we want to have real conversations with ourselves, we've got to understand we are not other people. We are our own person. We
Right.
were made the way we were made for certain reasons. Like, yes, I would love to be 140 and be able to fly down the line, but no, I'm 200 and I'm hitting bombs. Like, I'm okay with that because I would
Yeah.
not be Jesse Warren if I wasn't, you know, as powerful as I am.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like accepting who you are, being okay with who you are. And with all of that, just like understanding that your body was made to you know accomplish the things that you need to accomplish in the way that it needs to be accomplished.
I also have a question for you, Jesse. It's kind of a controversial one. What do you think about parents running their kids' social media in high school?
Ooh, um, good and
Like
bad.
yeah,
I think we talk about privacy and safety, and I get it. Like, I mean, I have a child on the way, and my number one priority is going to keep that child safe.
right,
So, I think I think it's okay to a certain extent.
right,
Monitoring more than running is where I
right.
would be at.
Yeah,
Your child is in high school and needs to take responsibility for, you know, tweeting out these videos or schedules for coaches. They are old enough to be responsible to do that. And I think a parent running a almost an adult, if you think about it,
yeah,
they're
right.
4 years away from being an adult. I just think it's more so parents need to monitor their child's socials rather than actually run it themselves. I get it if they're young.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm talking about, like,
12,
recruiting age.
12, 13 younger,
Yeah,
run it. Cool.
Right.
Once your child hits high school, monitor.
Yeah.
Don't run their socials.
Yeah.
They're at a recruiting age. They've got to have conversations with these coaches. They need to make sure that they're being responsible with their recruiting process. And that's kind of just my opinion. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
But like I said, I get it. I get the safety part. I get wanting to protect your child and make sure they are out of harm's way because that's a parent's number one priority. And but I think at that age, it's just like, and granted, I haven't lived it yet, so I don't know. I don't understand what parents feel, the
Yeah.
anxieties that they might feel about their child's social medias, which I'll get there one day. But yeah, I think just let your athlete learn how to be responsible with their social medias.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And I think that kind of what we were talking about earlier about, your personal brand. And if that's the way that you're communicating to coaches and people that follow you, like, this is my brand, this is who I am, I think that you have to let your kid run it. Because if not, if you're posting things for your child and then the coaches say they like what you're posting, but then they start talking to your kid and they're like, this kid's she's so different than she was on social media. So yeah, I mean, I think monitoring is a really good thing. I think just making sure, especially the more social media starts trending to having more fans and more people putting input on your child, hopefully at high school level. I hope to goodness it never gets to the point it's at in college, but I get that, and monitoring them and making sure that they're protected and they're not, getting these wacko DMs from some really weird people or anything like that. But I don't love seeing parents posting for their kid. I think that it's just not a great look, especially I think a lot of college coaches can tell for the most part. Now, if parents are really slick about it, maybe they can't. But I think that, yeah, like you said, responsibility wise, like your kids got to start doing it for themselves and putting things out there that they want to put out there and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's definitely a balance. But I just wanted to know your takes. I know I've seen some parents that do run their like junior
I
age
know
child, and I'm like, I think you got to let your kid do it at that point.
I know someone who was a senior and is now in college, and their parents still
Yeah,
runs their socials. So it's just like
yeah, it's
I think
interesting.
once they're in college, like why
Unless it's the
why
management team, if the management team wants to do it, but not
I'm
parents.
just like ugh, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think social media has a lot of pros and cons. I think that there's a lot more conversations to be had about the benefits and the resources that we need to put in place for athletes. At the end of the day, they are people and they have feelings, and they're definitely affected by mental health. It affects their mental health more than I think a lot of people think. So, yeah, Jess, well, that was a great conversation. I think that we'll probably have more to come. I'm sure this is not the last. We'll talk about social media and mental health. I think we'll have another episode that's specifically on mental health a little bit later. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys have any questions or anything to add to the conversation, please email me or Jesse. My email is Katie at extrainningsoftball.com, and Jesse's is Jesse at extrainningsoftball.com. So pretty simple. You can also email info at extrainningsoftball.com if you have any other questions. But yeah, DM us on Instagrams, on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever you want to do. If you have anything that you want us to cover or anything that you specifically, if you have a cool story about this social media or recruiting, please send it in. We'd love to read them and maybe be featured on our podcast. So thanks for listening, and make sure to tune in next week.